Okay, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and get things started, and we'll let people join us as they come. So first of all, I want to introduce myself. I'm Jenna Nilo. I'm the Director of Marketing and Outreach for Illinois Digital Educators Alliance. Thank you all for being here today. Hope you've been enjoying our Wednesday webinars and taking advantage of some of the sessions we've been putting out there. If you've missed some of them, you can always find them on our website. Under the Learn tab, there's a tab for for Wednesday webinars, and you can find our past sessions there. This one will go up there probably about tomorrow afternoon. I usually get it. So a little bit of housekeeping before I introduce our guest today. Everybody should have come in muted today, and please do me a favor, keep yourself muted throughout the presentation. I'm going to do that to myself as soon because my dog will start going nuts as soon as my son gets home. So keep yourself muted. That will allow our speakers the opportunity to just take the stage and not be interrupted. If you do have questions, we do welcome interaction and questions throughout the presentation. So if you do, please just throw those in the chat window, and I will be monitoring the chat as well as our two guests today. So between the three of us, we will make sure that your questions get answered. We'll interrupt when appropriate and make sure that we get those out there. So please feel free to ask questions, to interact, all that good stuff. If you can, that would be great. And then just so you know, we offer an hour PDH for your live attendance today. So at the end of this session, I will be putting a link to the forms to get that PDH in the chat window. So make sure you hang out all the way till the end, and I will put that form in there, the link to that form, and then there's a little back and forth that goes with the Google form. So just fill out the information, and we'll get that PDH hour credit for you as well. So without further ado, I am going to go ahead and welcome and introduce our two speakers today. I've got Dustin and Michelle from one of our newest partners, Sphero Edu. They're going to talk about STEAM and especially about their new Computer Science Foundations curriculum. So great opportunities there, especially as we are heading our way into Hour of Code week, and as I like to call it, Hour of Code month. So this is a great opportunity to get you guys all ramped up for that. So without further ado, Dustin, Michelle, I'm going to let you guys take it away.
Alrighty. Thanks, and thanks for having us. So hold on, okay, there we go. So as she mentioned, we're both from Sphero, and we're really excited to be here today. We'll go ahead and get started with just a few introductions so you understand who we are and who's talking to you. I'm Michelle Ackley. I'm the Senior Director of Customer Engagement here at Sphero. And what that means is I work with school districts all across the country on a few different things. One, professional development, doing sessions like we're doing today. Also writing content and making sure that we're getting the most engaging content in your hands and working with your students. But I'm excited today to really share with you about our Computer Science Foundations courses, but also how do you integrate computer science into what you do every day. And I'll let Dustin introduce himself.
So I'm Dustin Vanderplug, and I am the Regional Education Manager for the Midwest. My purpose is to share more information in regards to Sphero and make sure that implementation is done in your districts, and just sharing new activities and getting the robots in the hands of more kiddos around the area.
Great. So what are we going to cover today? For those of you who don't know us, we'll do a quick introduction into who is Sphero, then we'll dive deep into computer science instructions and really talk about why is it important, how would you integrate something like computer science in the everyday classroom, of course talk about our foundations courses, and then just really a hot topic, social emotional learning and how you can actually integrate computer science with social emotional learning. And finally, some implementation strategies. How do you actually make this work for you and your students? Then any Q&A and some kind of next steps and where you can go from there. But we'll kick it off with Dustin, who will, actually, first and foremost, I would love for you guys to engage today and not just listen to Dustin and I talk. I hear myself talk way too much, so I definitely want you to engage. So would love to hear from you. So I know how to really break apart our time is, what are you most excited about learning today? Go ahead and put it in the chat box, share one of these items, or if there's something that I did not put in the agenda that you would like us to cover as well. So I'll give you a few moments to find that chat box and put in what you're most excited about learning. So I see we have a couple of people putting in comments. Go ahead and put in what you're excited about learning. And it seems like we have a few coming in, what we have to offer, makerspace, how to use Sphero in other content areas. I'll give you just one more moment. And if you don't want to chat to the whole group, you can also select a specific person, Dustin or myself, to see your chats as well.
A lot of curriculum interest.
Great. Yeah, we're definitely going to cover some of these things today. We'll talk a little bit about how to expand upon our robots and go outside of Sphero Edu as well. So I saw that Python question, a lot of things about curriculum, which we're definitely going to get and we'll get into and dive deep into as well. All right. Well, without further ado, we're going to take note of those, but I'm going to let Dustin really dig into, for those of you who aren't as familiar with Sphero, just give a quick overview of who we are.
And then, so
can you see?
It went to the first slide.
And no videos, because videos don't like Zoom. All right.
Rock and roll. All right. So years ago, about roughly 10 years ago or so, we started as a company. The sole purpose of the company, or the focus of the company, was to build robots that you could program with a smart device. So it was more, and this is kind of like a bad word around what we're doing these days, but it was more or less focused as a toy. From there, we grew the education piece organically. So educators started purchasing robots at various places like Amazon, Best Buy, various other retailers. They started bringing the robots back into the classroom. And it came to a point where they reached out to us directly, and they said, "We have these awesome robots. What can we do with them next?" So from there, we developed out our education platform, and that's kind of how it all started. So we developed out our EDU app. Today, it's available on Chromebooks, iPads, Macs, PCs, Kindle, you name it. Providing you have a Bluetooth connection and availability to an app, you should be able to connect to the program and be able to control the robots. Sitting inside that app, not beyond being able to control the robots, but there's about 8,000 different activities available that you can have access to, spanning pretty much any subject area. So it's pretty intuitive and has grown a lot over the last couple of years. So beyond that, we believe that learners they're engaged and they exhibit long-term curiosity in STEAM subjects when they're provided with experiences across the curriculum. So STEAM education has been around for a while now, and it's growing and a vital part of the education space, specifically to meet the needs of the 21st century student. How we approach STEAM in the classroom is what makes us different, and is what is the difference. Instead of teaching subjects that are independent silos and lessons that are project-based, we also focus on interdisciplinary learning. So while you have super hands-on approach with utilizing the robots, the kiddos are also super engaged, and it's sparking their curiosity. So beyond that, every single Sphero robot, every product is basically, it's a blank canvas to be able to create. Again, the robots are super innovative, they're functional, but they're super simple in design. The tools that it takes, or the amount of time it takes to get everything up and running is minimal. So you can skip the setup, you can skip the tedious work, and you can, begin working with the robots with your students tomorrow, immediately. You have the immediate impact that you didn't traditionally have. At Sphero, we have focused our efforts on creating a full solution for your classroom. Recently, we merged with a company by the name of Littlebits. So we offer multiple components across the board as ways to support your STEAM in the school and computer science within the district. It begins with the design of the products, the STEAM concepts, supporting lessons, activities, creating the environment, and supporting the curiosity. The core focus is just to ensure that students and teachers have, an enriching experience, and it leaves them asking and learning and wanting to learn more. Today, we have, 4+ million robots sold. There's millions of students around the world coding with our robots, and literally thousands of new students are utilizing the robots daily. More kids learn to code with Sphero than any other robot in the world. So it's a pretty great place to start.
Right. Well, thanks, Dustin. And if you have any more questions about who Sphero is and what products we have to offer, we'll leave information at the end for you to reach out to us and definitely ask questions throughout the session.
Absolutely.
So computer science in the classroom. One thing to note throughout today's session, I'm going to use the words computer science, STEAM, STEM, computational thinking. They're all very interchangeable. I like to think of them as all part of an apple pie, where one is the crust and the other is the ingredients, but they're all put together really and work together to teach our students some of those really critical skills for the jobs of tomorrow. But before we dive into computer science, I want to give you a moment and read this math problem. So why not start a webinar with a little bit of algebra skills refresh? See if you can solve it. All right, so most of you probably are like, what did I join? I probably joined the wrong webinar. I don't really want to do any algebra today. And like many of my former students, when I was an algebra teacher, also taught geometry, I would get answers like Calvin here, who would essentially just say, yeah, I could just type that in the internet and look that up. Why do we have to do this? I just want to go outside and play, or I want to do something else. They weren't very motivated to solve the problem or figure out why it was important to solve the problem. And that's what we're going to really address today, is how can we continue to engage our students with the rate technology is advancing. So when we think about inspiring our students of tomorrow and really teaching them those computer science skills, it's about exposing students to skills that will allow them to thrive in a rapidly changing world so that they can go out and solve those problems, not necessarily with pencil and paper, but really think about ways of thinking, questioning, working together. And that's ultimately what we want to do as teachers, is have our students think about technology and think about the problems that they're solving. And really understand the impact that those problems have on today's society. So when we think about computational thinking and computer science, we're learning through a few different things. One is visual thinking, which is looking at a problem in a new way. Computational thinking, which is breaking down a problem in its components, as well as algorithmic thinking. But most importantly, when we talk about computer science, one thing that often gets overlooked is the grit and teamwork that's involved. Contrary to belief, most people think computer science, all it is sitting behind a computer terminal and coding and working by yourself, when in reality, that's just not how it is. It has to be teamwork, working together to solve problems and to create solutions that will help advance us and advance society. And not only us teachers are seeing that, when we surveyed some parents, we heard that 90% of parents want their children to learn computer science. But only 40% of schools are currently teaching any sort of computer science or offering some sort of STEM or STEAM curriculum within the classroom. Then we went and asked some teachers, you know, how do you think computer science at your school or district meets student needs? So I'm going to ask you today, since I have you, I would love to hear your answer. So do you think computer science at your school or district meets student needs? You can go ahead and type the solution in just one of the numbers in the chat box. Either 1, no coding instruction offered. 2, yes, you're meeting the needs. 3, no. 4, maybe it's too soon to tell. You started to implement it but don't know where it's going. 5, you don't know. Or 6, other. See some answers coming in. Thanks for participating. A couple of 4s, so too soon to tell. It's great to hear that trying new things out. I'll give you about 5 more seconds. Great. Well, thanks for participating. We'll definitely add some of this data to all the surveys we do. But when we surveyed a much larger group, this is what we saw. 43% just flat out said no, it's not. What they're doing in the school is not meeting their needs. And 20% are saying no coding instruction is offered. It's tough, and it's tough to integrate it. And so we asked the same teachers why. Well, you know, what challenges does your school or district face providing proper computer science instruction? Would love to hear your answer here as well. Is it 1, because of lack of training? 2, outdated equipment? 3, time devoted to other courses? 4, lack of support? Or 5, insufficient funding? And this is more for if you feel that your offering it is up to par, that's really great. If you want to offer more, what do you feel is suffering in maybe not just your classroom, but the district as a whole? And this was a multiple select question, so teachers could select more than one answer. So we see a couple of 3s, time devoted to other courses, 1 in there, a few 5s. Definitely some 3s.
Yeah, 3's the majority there.
Yeah. And we see this very often, specifically in middle and high school. And again, just kind of give you those results from a larger group. Similar things to what you were sharing, that time devoted to other courses, 54% said that. Lack of training was a large one that we heard from a different group. Insufficient funding, outdated equipment, and lack of support, where it came in a little less. But again, we saw that it wasn't because there wasn't a desire to do it, but it was, I have so much other things to do. How can I integrate this into what I'm doing today? And I don't feel confident integrating into what I'm doing today. But us at Sphero feel that teaching computer science and computational thinking do not have to come at the expense of a well-rounded education, and that you should stop. We don't believe you should stop doing those other courses. Math, science, ELA are critical to a student's education, and we think there's ways of integrating it. So when we think about computer science and computational thinking, there's really 4 stages: decomposition, pattern recognition, algorithms, and abstraction. When you look at this slide, I would ask you, what do you see they all have in common? I'll give you a hint. It's in purple. And if you're in colorblind, it's bolded. But essentially, it's just solving problems, breaking and different ways to break problems down to solve problems. And that's what computer science is figuring out ways to solve problems. We can take these things, and I can guarantee you many of you are already doing them in your classroom. Let's look at the first example, decomposition. So we see decomposition every day in English, not every day, but most days in English language arts classes, such as breaking down a poem into meter, rhyme, imagery, tone, dictation, and meaning. For pattern recognition, we ask students to identify patterns in history, so identifying cycles of the rise and fall of the country's economy. Algorithms, potentially in a media literacy lesson. We're examining how algorithms affect dialogue, our social media feeds, and our students see that every day, and really breaking that down and allowing them to understand that it's also in what you're teaching. And abstraction in environmental science, predicting the effects of removing a species from an ecosystem. This was recently seen in Yellowstone when they removed the wolves and had to put them back in because of the overall effects. It's similar to what we're learning in computer science. So a lot of times we hear teachers say, I don't feel confident or supported to teach computer science, when actually we're teaching it every day. So that can you truly have an integrated cross-curricular approach? We believe so, because you're already doing it. And now we're just going to add a little bit of extra to that, so that the next time you share a problem like this with your students, you're not going to be able to hear the sound, but you'll see the effects when they have two trains rolling and they all of a sudden intersect. One thing that you would have heard here is a huge group of students yelling and screaming because they were able to calculate correctly where the two trains would intersect. But now they're seeing it in real life. They're having those real applications, combine computer science with what they're doing in mathematics. So our goal is to inspire students, engage them in everyday learning, have them coming to school and being excited about the two-train problem, and really just going beyond code, that it is beyond sitting behind a computer terminal. And we've decided to help and support educators by introducing content that they can integrate alongside their current classroom. So over this past year in August, we launched our Computer Science Foundations by Sphero. It's a standard aligned curriculum that you can integrate into what you're doing every day. And the reason why we did this and we created it the way we did was for a few reasons. The one that really stands out to me is that second bullet point. Universities in Pennsylvania did not graduate a single new teacher prepared to teach computer science in 2016. That's crazy for how important we see computer science, STEAM, STEM, computational thinking. We talk about it. You talk about it. Your admins talk about it every single day. We hear it. It's a buzzword. But in 2016, not a single student in Pennsylvania at the universities there felt prepared to teach it. And then in October 2017, the Center of Digital Education found that 99% of teachers find it difficult to implement. Again, it's the lack of training plus the time and the need to execute and actually put it into the classroom. So we at Sphero got together and really thought, how can we support teachers in providing them content that they're asking for, as well as making sure they are meeting the needs of students so that they feel prepared to go out into the workforce as soon as they graduate from school. So we created this 3 courses to make computer science and robots approachable for everyone, for teachers and for everyone in all content areas. We covered different themes, from geometry to creative writing to social emotional learning to mathematics, and then had fun things in there as well, from missions and game design, but actually put in a lot of mathematical and history components into those things as well, so that teachers feel confident and comfortable to integrate these lessons inside of their classroom. Each one of these lessons, 70 out of the 72 total, are designed to be 45 minutes long, so it's not taking an entire week. However, they all have extension activities so that you can, if you would like to make a longer lesson out of it. It's meant to work with you as a teacher and the student, so that every learner can feel confident and comfortable starting wherever they are. So meeting the learner where they're at, whether they're just starting with Sphero and doing some basic draw programming, or getting more advanced into our JavaScript. I'm going to pause for a second because I've just said a lot. Any questions so far? I'm going to take that as a no. Dustin, feel free to interrupt me if any questions do come up.
Yeah.
So what are some key benefits to this curriculum that we have created? The first and most important to me is that educators learn and students learn. We've created this on a mantra, is that you learn, they learn. Everyone learns together. Knowing that most teachers are not feeling prepared to teach it, we fully expect that our teachers are on the ground learning right next to their students as they're programming their Spheros to do whatever the lesson has asked them to do. That way, no one has to feel like they're an expert. Again, it's for all ages, all abilities, whether students have extensive experience or none at all. It's really diving into an entry point into problem solving through programming. So again, that problem solving component is constantly coming up, really trying to get students away from thinking that engineering and computer science is all about sitting behind a computer terminal.
We do have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
It says, is this all laid out in the curriculum sent by Code Forward in the Sphero packs?
Yeah, so well, depends on when you applied for Code Forward. The most recent applicants through Code Forward are receiving 9 Bolt robots, as well as Course 1 with Sphero through the Code Forward grant. So it's just Course 1, and all of this is laid out through that. If you received a Code Forward grant previously to the past month, you would have gotten an entire power pack, which is 15 robots, but you would have not received this content with it. This is a paid for offering through Sphero. And I'm more than happy to dive into that a little bit. I see another question come through. And one is there a reason to use the Sphero Play app before using Sphero Edu? Potentially, depending on what grade level you're using Sphero with. If you're using it with K to 3, potentially, yes, there are directional blocks, so blocks with arrows that exist in the Sphero Play app that don't exist in Sphero Edu. If you're using it with 3rd grade and above, I recommend that you just start with the Sphero Edu app and get your students coding, getting them to understand that Sphero is much more accurate when you program it versus drive it. Create a maze, have your students try to drive through it, and they have to be perfect, and then have them code through it. All of a sudden, they'll understand how much more accurate the coding is than the driving. Driving's fun. Definitely let them get it out of their system.
The Play app, I have my kiddos at home. I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I think the Play app is a little bit more applicable to them for that block coding, the directional coding that you're able to use. So, I mean, for the littler, for the smaller kiddos, the earlier kids that you're trying to incorporate or you're trying to adapt into this, I would say that very elementary block coding is, the movement coding is super intuitive for them. I mean, my daughter, who hasn't been too exposed to it yet, has a pretty easy time with it. So that's my recommendation there too.
Yeah, and kind of back to this computer science foundations we get a lot of questions like this. Where do I start? Where do I begin? Computer science foundations is really a guided experience for you. So you know exactly where to start and where you're trying to go versus trying to find the resources completely on your own. And again, we're trying to make those cross-curricular connections. So we even have a lesson that you can integrate into a physical education class, which is controlled chaos, as you can imagine, of kids running around chasing robots. And then just to cover this very briefly, you know, really elevating community through social emotional learning. I'll dive in more of that in a second, but with that, we're also talking about creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, communication, and reasonable decision making, which is, we know, critical to the SEL content that we see today. It's device agnostic for the most part, Chrome, iOS, Android, Mac, Windows, you name it, with very few device restrictions that you can use with our courses. And then it is standards aligned with the Computer Science Teachers Association standards. So who can benefit from this? You know, why buy this? Why is this important? Again, it is that guided experience. And then I think those who can benefit from it are people who currently have robots and they're looking to expand their usage. If you have a STEM or STEAM or computer science initiative, you want to do more in your math class, similar to what I showed you in the algebra problem, your science, history. How can you make those connections and together with computer science? You're looking to enhance those 4 C's for those 21st century skills to making sure your students are prepared. And just really looking to take some simple actionable steps in integrating computational thinking or problem solving into your curriculum. So again, pretty much a lot of people can benefit from this and just really looking to enhance what you're doing already. This is a good step forward. And again, just kind of to highlight what it is, and then I'll dive into the social emotional learning aspect, is we talked about that you as an educator can learn alongside of your students. With each of these courses, we guide educators with these guidebooks on how to integrate, how to answer questions, hear solutions, just really scaffolding it so that educators can feel confident using computer science foundations with their robots. So that's the course in a nutshell, but I'm going to dive into something that I'm extremely passionate about, which is can you integrate computer science with social emotional learning? It's a very hot topic in both elementary, middle, and high school that I know a lot of schools are trying to find ways to integrate it into their curriculum. We wanted to make sure that we truly you know, built our computer science foundations with this. So CSF, it allows learners to grow those vital social emotional skills, as well as these 21st century skills, which are very intertwined, thinking about collaboration, communication, and responsible decision making. Those are things that we see in our SEL framework, which talk about self-awareness, relationship skills, self-management, social awareness, and responsible decision-making. And we have defined 8 lessons and a whole theme that you can use that fit right into this framework. But overall, all of our activities encourage that collaboration and decision-making and communication and problem-solving. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you one of these lessons to see what it looks like. So you're going to have to give me a minute. So I am going to share something, make sure. Let's see here. Can you see my screen, or is it the wrong screen? Oh, wait, hold on, there, share.
Perfect.
Okay, so what our Computer Science Foundations does exist within the Sphero Edu app. It looks like this, but I want to point out specifically the social emotional learning and one of the lessons so you can get a feeling for what it looks like. So it is within our empathy theme. And the one I'm going to point out today is it's called Good Vibes. So Good Vibes is really focused in on bullying. And this lesson starts out with, so this, what you're seeing here is what a teacher and a student would see within the application. So did you know that 1 in every 5 students reports being bullied? In this lesson, you'll see how quickly bullying can bring down a classroom and a community and how to put an end to it. Everyone has a voice in raising awareness in bullying, whether you're a student, educator, or parent. It's important and to remember to spread kindness, not cruelty. I don't know about you, if you've ever been in a middle school classroom and talking about bullying, you'll get some eye rolls, you'll get people to say, I know, I know, I know. That's middle school students for you. So how can we take a topic like this that we know our students have heard a lot about, but really tie it to even computer science? So what students are doing in this particular lesson is they're using the IR, the infrared communication with inside our Bolt robot, and they're actually, they have a bully robot and a kind robot, and they spread essentially bad vibes and how that affects the classroom. And then they have to create a cure for it, which is creating a program that sends more happy messages. And then throughout the activity, they also discuss different ways to actually share what it means, why bullying happens. They also discuss how can you change a bully? How can you change some of those attitudes? And then of course, as you can see on my screen, this is a GIF that really walks students through some of this programming, specifically in this case is a variable. When I start an activity, this is what students will see. Again, kind of that beginning, but then they'll go into the Canvas setting. In a minute, it will load. Give it, because you know, live demos are always fun.
It's technology.
I know. Well, let me try that again. Let me try that one more time, and I don't want to take up too much of our time today. I'm going to blame it on the Zoom that's taking up all my computer power. Is that how it works?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, of course. I have no idea. So I'm just going to go into a different one just to show you how that works when someone starts an activity and it looks like I'm just not, it's not working for me. I'll give it a minute to load while I go back to my presentation, and I'll come back to it so I can show you what that looks like. All right. Give me 1 second. So any questions so far? I'd love to hear your thoughts on the social emotional learning aspect of what we're offering.
How many lessons were in there for the social?
There's 8 that are 100% dedicated to social emotional learning. It's an entire theme. And we would say that each one is about 45 minutes to an hour long, each lesson. However, they all have expandability capability so that you can take specifically, there's one that says under responsible decision making, it's called Shoes for Sphero, where they have to learn to walk in someone else's shoes using JavaScript. That lesson can actually span a week based on the extensions that we have chosen to offer.
We did have one other question about how to incorporate it in a 1 hour a week setting.
Specifically, what I would recommend, so I'm going to actually go through some of these implementation strategies on how I would actually recommend implementing it in a 1 hour a week setting. We'll start with elementary, go to middle and high, and some makerspace examples of how it can be implemented. And then let me know if that answers your question. If it doesn't, I'm happy to dive in a little deeper. So if I'm an elementary school educator and I've just gotten a Power Pack and I really want to just integrate it slowly, here's a way that we could see an educator implementing it, starting with a few draw lessons with the A and STEAM, going into some math lessons with our shapes and numbers that it's tying really well to what they're teaching in the classroom. They go back to the A and STEAM, which addresses not only art, but also some ELA and poetry type, more writing artistic components. But then they get to this intermediate block level and they notice that their students are kind of stuck and need reinforcement. In that particular level, we're starting to cover conditionals and loops. And so they're reinforcing it across all of their subject areas, from nature, which is around science, social emotional learning, and then storytelling, which is English language arts and some creative writing. A middle school educator, a pathway is there's you and your two other team teachers. You teach different things. You have potentially a science teacher, again, those social emotional learning aspects, and then game design, which has a lot of math tie-ins. Is throughout the year, you space it out and decide that, no, you're not going to teach it once a week for an hour, but you're going to alternate with your co-teachers, so that the science teacher starts out with a few lessons, really teaching some of those basics. Then they pass it off to potentially a homeroom teacher or someone coming in to teach some of those empathy, social emotional learning skills. We'll teach a few and pair with math class, and maybe alternate every other week as they work down the continuum until students feel more confident and are learning some of the basic entry level to JavaScript. And then what we've seen a lot of is a library media specialist, a makerspace, trying to find different ways to integrate it to really get their students involved. Is they'll buy all 3 courses, and then they'll work across the continuum based on the different grade levels. So 6th grade, they want to cover all of the subject areas, integrating with what the core teachers are already teaching, but really kind of reinforcing the same programming skills. In 7th grade, a similar pathway, and then again, you'll see in 8th grade. But carving out that one 45-minute section a week or once every other week to do these lessons, they're planned for you, they're ready to go, they're within the Sphero Edu app, that students can work in pairs or you can work together as a whole class. And if you're ready to get your hands on something like this, we do have 3 open lessons within the Sphero Edu app. When you go into the app, you'll see these 3 icons that are open for you to try out. We have one around nature, one again around empathy, that's social emotional learning. It's called Compliment Giver, and then a Brain Breakers one, which is called Google the Gates, and teaches students about how to do proper research. And they have to navigate through a kind of a maze. All right, I know we're covered a lot of information, so I want to leave some time now for some Q&A. Any questions? I've just stunned all of you, right?
Right.
So I see the question, is it possible to get the printed curriculum pack like what was just shown in the picture? Yes, the printed books do come with the curriculum. So the printed books, you get 1 book per teacher license, and then it also unlocks the online content that is for your students. Your students would only work through the online content, where you as a teacher would have both the book and access to the online content, because we know it's really difficult to manage connecting robots, finding it on your computer, and then finding the educator notes and the solutions as well. So that's, we'll have the teacher guide to help you implement that. If you want a preview of any of this, we're definitely, you can reach out to us. But I do see one more question. It says, okay, so what are some good self-guided lessons? For example, are there videos the kids could go through by themselves? Each of the lessons within Computer Science Foundations can be done self-guided. We actually tested them with students working through them independently to ensure reading level was appropriate down to 3rd grade for course 1, all the way up through remaining students engaged through freshmen in high school for course 3. There are There are other activities within Sphero Edu that can be self-guided that are open and free every week. We try to launch a new activity that you can access that we do try to write student-facing depending on what age group your students are.
Okay,
so
there was
if
a
you would like,
question. Oh, sorry, there was a
Sorry, go
question
ahead.
earlier about how long does the battery last?
Depends on what robot you have. If you have a Bolt robot, so the one with the 8x8 matrix on top, the robot will last almost the full school day. We say 2 hours of continuous runtime, but that means the motors have to constantly be running for 2 hours in all of our tests, which when students are programming, they're on their Chromebook, that motors aren't running. So typically we'll see that last at least 5-6 hours. If you have a Spark Plus, it's about an hour of continuous running time, depending on the year, on when it and how old it is. Batteries do deteriorate over time. And then if you have a Rover, which is our latest robot, that will also last about a full school day, but has a replaceable rechargeable battery.
Okay, and then I got a question sent to me directly, so you guys didn't see it. What about at the high school level? How would you use these at the high school level?
2 ways. One, if it's just our foundations courses, if students have never programmed ever before, definitely appropriate for high school students. If you're looking to go beyond, you're looking to teach, computer science principles or some of those foundations courses in high school. I know computer science principles is sort of open in terms of what programming language you can use. So you can use blocks, but you can also use JavaScript with Sphero. The other way is with our latest robot, Rover. Rover is expandable. You can attach a Raspberry Pi, a microbit, and Arduino. So no longer are you limited to the Sphero Edu platform. It actually is open so that you can use things like Python to teach your students as well, or integrate things like a microbit, which you might already be using in your classroom. And then I see a couple of good questions. So for an elementary school, would course 1 be good as starting point? And then would course 2 and 3 are needed? Are they available for a standalone purchase? Yes, each course is available for standalone purchase, or you can purchase them in a bundle. If your students have never programmed before, definitely start with course 1. Then course 2 kind of starts with beginning blocks, but jumps into what we say intermediate blocks pretty quickly.
There's actually an hour code promo that we're running for a free set of curriculum with a purchase of a set of robots. So something to look into. You can email me if you have questions about that.
And finally, any update on the Chrome OS 78 compatibility issue? It is the #1 priority for our engineering team right now. So not yet, but very, very soon.
There was how much of a thump can these take with the rubber cover on them? Even without the rubber cover, we do specifically the ball, not Rover, not Mini, only Spark Plus and Bolt. We do drop tests from a couple stories up, good to go most of the time, unless it lands really funny. So they can take a pretty hard thump. You'll see there's an activity within the Sphero Edu app about kids building parachutes and the teacher literally dropping them off a building and then programming the acceleration and the impact of the robot. It landed on grass, so that was a good thing, and no robots were broken. So they can take quite the thump even without the cover, but don't test it. And if it does break, we will replace it, but don't throw it off the 5-story building. Any other questions? You guys have been great. Wasn't an extremely large group, but I can't thank you enough for engaging with us today. And then, well, what is the best way to store the Sphero Robe when not in use? It is to deep sleep the robot. So that is fully turning it off.
You can either do that through the app when you disconnect it, or you can hold the, I don't have a charging cradle with me, but if you hold the button on the side of the charging cradle on and then you place the robot on the charging cradle, it will deep sleep the robot. If you're not going to use them thinking over the holiday break, I do recommend that. It helps kind of save battery life.
Perfect.
All right. Well, I will turn it back over to our team here because I know you have 2 webinars coming up soon. Probably not as exciting as ours. Just kidding.
Hey now.
Just kidding.
Actually, we do have a surprise. Dustin, when do you want to take care of that one?
Oh yeah. So we're gonna give away a robot for someone that was in attendance here today. So
Whoop, whoop.
yeah, I guess.
So I've actually put everybody who's still on the call into a flippity. So as long as you guys trust me to just run this puppy and not share my screen, I'm just going to go ahead and click to spin and let you know who wins. Lindsay S.
Go to the next one. That's ironic because she actually works for us. Lindsay Smith.
Oh, for gosh sakes. I cut you 2 out.
Yeah. Oh man.
Alex, you win a robot.
So Alex,
I don't know
send
which
me.
one you
send
guys
me a
are giving
message.
away.
I'm sure I can get your contact information, but send me a message directly too, and I can make sure that I get it sent over to the right address.
Woohoo! Okay, so if you guys can
Congratulations.
go back to those other 2 screens. So I just wanted to, number one, thank Dustin and Michelle for an awesome job today. I love these Wednesday webinars, I'll be honest with you. Fascinating stuff. The curriculum, the CS Foundation's curriculum looks awesome. I wish I was still in the classroom because I would for sure be all over this. So thank you both very much for everything today. Wanted to let everybody know about our next 2 upcoming webinars. We have on December 4th, so we're obviously taking off next week for Turkey Day. So everybody enjoy your Wednesday, getting ready for thawing out your turkeys for the next day. So on December 4th, we'll be back with Class Intercom, and they'll be doing one on simple design for your school's social media. So how do you really get that visual content out there and best ways for that? So please join us for that. And then on the 11th, the following week, one of our newest partners, EverFi, we're going to be talking with them about sharpening STEM skills and increasing student interest in those STEM careers. So how can we do that for our students? So go ahead and register for both of those. As I mentioned at the beginning, we did record today's webinar, so I will be sending an email out to everybody tomorrow with the recording of the webinar. And then Michelle, Dustin, do you guys want to send me a PDF or whatever of the slide deck, and I can include that as well?
Sure.
Yep,
Great.
Yeah,
So,
I can do that after this.
Perfect. So we will include that in the email as well. So look for that email tomorrow. And then also, as I said, at any time you guys can go on our website, ideaillinois.org/Wednesday webinars. That'll take you right to our Wednesday webinar page, and you will find this webinar recording tomorrow, and then all of the previous ones that we've done as well. So make sure you take a look for that. I am going to pop in the chat window right now the link to get your PDH for today. So everybody who was attending live today, you can go ahead, click that link, and that PDH link will be available until midnight tonight. We'll turn it off at midnight. So make sure you go ahead and do that right now and get your hour credit for your time today. So without further ado then, if anybody has any questions, we'll stay on for just another minute or 2. Otherwise, you guys, thanks so much, Michelle, Dustin, and I look forward to the next one we do with you guys. So thank you.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Of course. Thank you for having us.